Okay, folks, we're going to get started. Thank you all for being here. It's super exciting to get started with a bunch of new folks as part of our community advisory committee. So welcome to a bunch of folks and welcome back to a bunch of folks as well. And thank you for all of our staff for being here as well. I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Project Connect Community Advisory Committee on January 11th, 2024 at 5:07 p.m. at the Austin Transit Partnership Office Boardroom at 203 Colorado Street. Our first item is the land acknowledgement, and do we have Mr. Miguel Lopez present for that?
He's on. Yes, sir, Chair.
Thank you. Miguel, could you guide us through the land acknowledgement?
I'd be happy to. Happy New Year, everyone. To ground yourself before starting this meeting, it's important to talk about the history of this region. Long before it came to be known as Waterloo or Austin, this region has drawn people here for thousands of years, in part because of our waterways and the wealth of natural resources. This region has been home to the Tonkawa, the Coalteca, as well as the Comanche, Lipan Apache, Sana, Humanos, and many others I may not have named who were also caretakers of this land. I highlight this history because Native and Indigenous peoples are routinely erased from the conversation, referred to as having disappeared or having been conquered. Native and Indigenous peoples are still here and present in what we now call Austin. The pursuit of white land ownership, profit, and so-called progress has harmed Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the city. The effects of the legacy of settler colonialism, the theft of land, slavery, and genocide are still felt and present with us today. It's vital to keep this history in mind as you do this important work and make a commitment to stop perpetuating the cycle of violence against Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. I forgot to do this, but as part of our call to order, I'm going to go over a roll call as well. So this is Chair Zahar, I'm here. Vice Chair Flato. Here. Our Secretary, Ms. Summers. Here. Mr. Brooks. Mr. Conley. Mr. Crossley. Here. Ms. Pan. Mr. Gorse. Here. Mr. Hendricks. Here. Ms. Mayer. Here. Appreciate it. And Mr. Reed.
I'm here.
Thank you all very much. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Is there anyone here from the public who would like to provide a comment? And I should also point out that if you're on the Zoom and you're one of our attendees and would like to provide public comment as well, if you raise your hand, we can acknowledge you and give you an opportunity to speak. Okay, we can actually move on with our business then. Appreciate that very much. So the first item is the approval of our December 14th minutes. These were distributed previously. Is there anyone who wishes to make any edits or has any recommendations on something that needs to be changed in those? If not, do I have a motion to approve the, sorry, go ahead, Ms. Appreciate it. Vice Chair Flatter, do we have a second on that? Go ahead and second it. And a reminder that even if you were not present at the meeting, as a lot of folks are new, you still can vote on approval of those minutes. So just a reminder to folks that in general, you're always allowed to vote on approval of minutes, even for a meeting that you were not present at. So all those in favor, either raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Hi. Appreciate it. Mr. Reed, can you say aye or raise your hand? I see you're coming online.
Aye.
Perfect, thank you. That passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. So our next item really is the introduction of our CAC members. It made sense for all of us to introduce ourselves to each other, both returning members, but also folks who are joining us. And I know folks who are joining us, it's not like y'all are new to the project in any way. You've been part of this journey with us, so we appreciate you all very much. But I wanted to create an opportunity for folks to get started. So among the folks who are not returning, is there anyone who wants to get started? You can just share a little bit about yourself with the rest of the committee members and introduce yourself. Mr. Brooks, can I call on you? You are our super volunteer with Project Connect, so.
Yes, I've been an advocate for Project Connect for the community since 2015, thereabouts, which is really for the roots of the project.
Do we need to pause for a second? Go, continue, please.
Okay. I didn't get this. So let's see, that's 8 years of attending, of supporting Project Connect in various ways. I'm a member of the Project Connect Ambassador Network, or I guess it was the third generation, with Susan Summers, the representative of the first generation of advocacy. Outside of that, I'm also now on the City of Austin Urban Transportation Commission, and I insist that we get regular updates there on Project Connect as well. So I'm happy to have an opportunity to contribute even further.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. We're learning the tech as we go along. Mr. Crossley, we can go to you, and then we'll go to the virtual folks.
Hi, my name is Jay Blazer Crossley. I have been on the Project Connect Advisory Network for a long time, back to the old name, and so have been involved in all this for a while. I have served on I was on the City of Austin Pedestrian Advisory Council for a good while, and ended up being chair there, and then decided to make room for other people there. And I was on the board of the CTRMA for a little while. And so I've done various things. In my day job, I work for a nonprofit called Farm and City, which is very involved in similar things. A lot of the work Farm and City had to do with trying to get this transit funding and to optimize these kind of things. And we still work on that at the state level and on various things. And also we had a big interest and did a bunch of reports about the whole equitable transit-oriented development, anti-displacement part of all this. And so I'm very excited to be part of this and grateful for all y'all for what you do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Crossley. Mr. Reed, can we go to you?
Yes, I'm Shamari Reed. I'm from Dallas, Texas. Moved here to Austin 2 years ago, and I work for a company called BOE. I'm a traffic engineer. I joined this community advisory committee to get to know Austin a little bit more and, help out with the community. So looking forward to working with all of y'all.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Ms. Mary?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Meyer. I am the co-chair for the Mayor's Committee for People with Disabilities here in Austin. And actually, you notice I'm on my way to your building. I'm sorry, I apologize. My bus was running about 20 minutes behind this afternoon. But I have been a Capital Metro user since 1998, and I'm a special ed teacher, and I'm really excited for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Meyer. And I want to say thank you for giving us a great sort of view of our urbanscape and how exciting our city is. So we appreciate that very much. So I guess we'll go to returning members. Mr. Hendricks,
Hi, I'm Jeremy Hendricks. My day job, I work with the Laborers International Union of North America, which is a, how did I not do it?
Okay, so does it, but we can hear you clearly. So.
Okay, Jeremy Hendricks with LIUNA. We're a construction union, so I've definitely been an advocate for this for a long time. Care not just about when it's built, but how it's built, how the workers are treated. I also serve on the Transit Forward Board, the Airport Commission, and a number of other things, but definitely have been an advocate for this project for a long time, or this series of projects. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Go ahead, Ms. Summers, I feel like you're, oh, sorry, Ms. Lato, you're ready to go.
Don't know that I can get it. Oh, now it's working.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, I'm Gretchen Plato, and I'm vice chair of this group, of this committee. I also serve on the Commission for Aging, and my background is in nonprofits and nonprofit management, and I've worked with a lot of different nonprofits in town, but I got involved in this project really to advocate for seniors and to make sure that we're considering all sorts of populations when we're looking at our transit system. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corris?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Mike Gorse, and I originally joined the committee back in September of 2021. 2022, I believe. I was appointed as a representative of the Access Advisory Committee. So, and I've now been reappointed by the nominating committee. So I'm originally from the Boston area. I've been living in Austin since 2008 or so. I also serve on the Aura board, at least until my term is up later this year. And for a few years, I was on the National Federation of the Blind chapter board, but I decided to step down from that kind of to make room for other people. But I'm still somewhat of a transportation liaison for the chapter.
Thank you, Mr. Gorse. I really appreciate it. Ms. Summers. Oh, and I should remind folks that can we talk a little slower for our interpreters so they can follow along? Ms. Summers, go ahead.
Mike, there we go. I did it. Okay. I'm Susan Summers. I'm the secretary of this body. Professionally, I work at UT Austin. I'm academic advisor, which usually doesn't really relate to my work in urban transportation, but I'm just a transit writer and passionate about transit and urbanism, I guess you could say. I got involved with Project Connect actually really early in the first version of what we called Project Connect in 2013-14. I was a founding board member of the organization called Aura. And then after that, I joined I guess in 2015, it was the Multimodal Advisory Committee, which became the PCAN, which anyway, and then, so currently my roles, I'm on this body as secretary, and then I'm also chair of the Urban Transportation Commission, but I don't know, maybe this is too real, but in 2013-14, I actually fought a transit bond, which was extremely personal, painful personal experience for me. And I said, I'm never going to do that again. I'm going to make sure that I don't have to do that again. So then this has been like my life passion since that time, is making this happen. So anyway, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Ms. Summers. So, hi folks, my name is Avessa Zahar, and I serve as the chair of the Project Connect Community Advisory Committee, and I've served in that position since we were formed. Like Susan, I'm a transit user. A lot of people would know this. I don't know how to drive, so really transit is my main mode of transportation. And I've mentioned in other places, shamefully, I don't know how to ride a bike either. So really, transit is it. My legs in transit are the only things that are keeping me moving in my life. So of course, I care about this work very passionately because it impacts my own daily experience very well. And generally, I've just been a mobility and housing advocate, looking at a lot of different elements. And Project Connect is a great space to talk about those because we have, work on anti-displacement efforts. We have work on looking at our equitable transit-oriented development, a lot of those other conversations that are really critical to making transit function really well, beyond simply the transit itself. And as always, it's an honor to serve on the committee with all of you. Am I missing anyone? I think all the folks who are present, we covered them. Okay, that takes us to our action item. And actually, I feel like we saw Ms. Meyer walk in. So hopefully she'll come in by the time we do this. So just so folks know, one of the things that was changed in our bylaws was that we have different term lengths. So in order to stagger it and make sure that there's continuity in the way we're all serving, there's going to be term lengths will differ between 2 and 4 years as we move forward. It's completely based on chance. So we're going to walk through how to do this. And do you want to help walk us through what is the best way to do this?
Yes. Sure. We're going to draw numbers from a basket. So in the basket, I found the paper in front of me. It goes back and forth, 4 year, 2 year term, 4 year, 2 year term. As we draw the numbers from the basket, we have those numbers correlated to your names. So we'll announce what that number is in your turn. We'll write it on the paper. And then the Liz will go over it at the very end, just sort of recap, so everybody will be familiar with what your term is.
I appreciate that. It feels, I'm saying it feels a little evil for me to start on my own, so maybe let's start with Miss Summers on the other end.
Well, we're gonna draw, it's random numbers. from
Okay,
here.
perfect, so
It won't be, it'll be whatever number this is. Number one. Number one is the best. And he has a 4-year term. So you may feel evil, but.
or I'm not sure what I'm getting myself into, but either way, I'm excited.
By chance, it will not come for you. For this 2-year term, we have. Let's see, told you, this one. We're gonna go with a 9. I feel like this is a 9. It looked more 9 than 6. I don't know why. So for this 2-year term, we have Jeremy Hendricks. Or do you want to go by Jeremiah? All right. Yeah, from the list that Courtney had sent out in the original email, she had listed people out, so we just went with that numbers, with those numbers, and we'll play it from there. Number 7 for this 4-year term, and that is Catherine. Catherine Fan. All right, for a 2-year term, we are going with number 8, which is Mike Norris. All right, we have a 4-year term. And for this 4-year term, we have number 5, JP. Okay. 2-year term, we have number 10, and number 10 is Elizabeth Meyer. For this 4-year term, we'll have 4 numbers, 2 of them. Number 2. Number 2 is Gretchen. This is a 2-year term. And we will go with lucky number 3. Number 3 is Susan Summers. Okay. 4-year term. And number 4, Reuben. This is just quiet in here. 2-year term. Some music. Number 11. Kashmiri? Shamari, sorry. Shamari Reed. What number I said was 11? Yep. This 4-year term is. So this is 6. 6 is Jay. All right. And then we'll have it read into the record by chair. If.
Sure I can. Thank you, staff, for leading us through that. So this is our final draw, and we'll make sure that there's a way for us to share this with y'all as well. And we can consider if there's a way to put it on maybe on the website or something where people can access it more readily. So there's a 4-year term, which is myself, Avesis Har, 2-year term for Mr. Jeremy Hendricks, 4-year term for Ms. Catherine Fan, 2-year term for Mr. Mike Gorse, 4-year term for Mr. Jean Paul Connolly, 2-year term for Ms. Elizabeth Meyer, 4-year term for Ms. Gretchen Plateau, 2-year term for Ms. Susan Summers, 4-year term for Mr. Reuben Brooks, 2-year term for Mr. Shamari Reed, and 4-year term for Mr. J. Blazek Crossley. Thank you all and congratulations. So the next piece is really discussion item, just so folks know, really, we don't have a very heavy content agenda. The idea here was really to have y'all introduced to all of our different staff teams. I think there's no denying the fact there's a lot of moving parts to Project Connect. There's a lot of different elements and teams working on a lot of amazing work. So we wanted to make sure that some of the major work that's happening, we could sort of do short presentations on that. And we'll still have some time to do a little bit of Q&A, but really if we want to dig deeper into a topic, we'll probably pull it for a future discussion item. So the idea really is, I mean, for lack of a better word, this is like speed dating with Project Connect. We're going to try to connect very quickly with all the different elements and go through them and be able to go through them and, you know, go through all the different elements that are there. I do want to acknowledge Mr. Greg Canali, the Executive Director of the Austin Transit Partnership, who is present here. I don't know, Mr. Canali, if you wanted to say a few words or something. You really did.
I'll go up here. I like this chair better. Well, this is cool new fancy stuff that we have here. Hopefully it's working. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for, I see old faces on the CAC and some new faces. So thanks for joining us. I know you have a day of introductions of your new folks and learning from our staffs and collective staffs where we are and where we're going. I just really wanted to say a few words. You know, I think we had a really important election several years ago, and this community decided to invest in a different type of Austin, an Austin that was striving to be more equitable, more sustainable. And we all viewed the sense that transit can really help be one of the inputs to that overall goal for our region here in Central Texas. And so after that vote, a lot of things happened. One of them was we created a new organization to help oversee and implement and collaborate with the partners. And so the Austin Transit Partnership, on some level, we're the receiver of those funds. We're using those funds to implement Austin Light Rail. That's what we do in this building day in, day out. But we also collaborate with our partners at Capital Metro and the city as they also do implement projects that are part of that overall program of Project Connect. Cap Metro really leading and really doing a great job of implementing all the stuff as part of their network. And then the city of Austin moving forward on the investment in housing that was really unique around the country. So we're really excited about that. We've had a tremendous amount of work that we've all done over the last several years, and we're really excited about the year ahead. What I can tell you is, you know, we're at the point now where we've actually had an opportunity to start talking about our story here in Austin, about what we've done nationally. And, you know, we always know folks have been intrigued with Austin. But when we talk about what we've done here, this idea of creating an independent entity, but also doing this other type of investment in transit, and then also the creation of the CAC, we've had an opportunity to talk about the reason that happened from the get-go. The creation of the CAC was not something that was thought about a year afterwards or 2 years afterwards. It happened at the initial thought of this investment. And I think the community has been so well served by that. And so we love kind of promoting the work that you have done to help be really a steward and an oversight of this overall effort. So I just want to acknowledge that. I know two things. I know how much we as ATP, and I think I can speak for our partners on this, how much we appreciate your time that you put into this on behalf of the community. On individual level, it's really important because I think it helps us do what we need to do with the right lens every day. And then also as an overall group, the work that you're doing and thinking about things maybe a little differently than we would on a day-to-day basis, and how critical that is for this success over this decade of work that we need to do. So I really just want to thank you for your service. Again, you're new, whether you're staying on and continuing going on, or you're new to the board, there's some new old faces and new roles. So we look forward to being here with you month in, month out, and working with you and working with the community as we advance these just amazing investments in Austin. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly, and thank you to all of our different agencies and partners for all of your work. We'll jump into the presentations with the light rail portion first, but before that, Janice, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Giannis Banks, I'm one of the community outreach managers here at Austin Transit Partnership. There's two of us. My coworker Jocelyn's back there in the corner, so y'all will interact with us probably a lot. And then Courtney, who's normally here, is not able to be here today.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that y'all were pretty aware of Giannis and Courtney, because you're going to be receiving a lot of communication from them. So I'll call up the Austin Transit Partnership team. So as people come up, can you introduce any of your colleagues that are in the room as well, so that folks are acquainted with everybody, and feel free to get started whenever you're ready. It's the button on the right side. The right button. There's two buttons. Hit the little person. If you click it, it should.
Barbara J's.
And just so we are helpful here, so I'm going to ask our CSE members if what y'all could help us with is maybe ask just a few clarifying questions or something specific that you might have in mind as people present, but we'll have time in the end to go through sort of more questions. And again, we will have the ability to pull up items in future agendas as well. But we do have 5 presentations we're going to get through. So maybe just ask a few clarifying questions or things that might seem urgent, and then we can continue.
That's the ticket. Yeah.
Goes on.
Okay. It's only one person may be amplified at a time.
Kill mics didn't leave me. So I think that's what it is.
Maybe I'll introduce. So my name is Jennifer Pine. I'm with Austin Transit Partnership. I'm Executive Vice President for Planning, Community and Federal Programs.
And I am Lindsay Wood, Executive Vice President of Engineering and Construction for Austin Transit Partnership.
Okay, so maybe in the room, we have Jocelyn, folks from our community engagement team. Let's see, we've met Greg Connolly. Brandon Carr is our legal counsel. And on the virtually, I believe we have Peter Mullen and Lisa Storr, who are part of our architectural urban design team. Have I missed anybody? So we just have a very brief presentation, and maybe we'll start with just briefly what is light rail. As Greg mentioned, the staff at Austin Transit Partnership is generally focused on implementing the light rail aspect of the program. So light rail, it's an electric train system. It would be embedded primarily in our street network, and will be a high capacity mode that does not currently exist in Austin. It'd be a little different from the red line that you might be familiar with, which is not in street necessarily. The vehicles would be a little bit different, as well as the way it operates. Generally, light rail would be in street, serving activity centers, connecting parts of the city together, allowing you to make longer trips a little bit faster. So it's not a replacement for local bus. They're part of a network that works together. And so we, in our planning for the system, we're looking at how bus and light rail will work together. That's an important part of its ultimate success. If we go to the next slide. Thank you. So one of the things that we kind of like to talk about is a route, kind of what is the need for light rail? What are we trying to accomplish? There's probably two big trends in Austin, right? Growth that's occurred over the decades and also affordability, which has eroded over time as the growth has occurred. And I'm sure you're all familiar with those trends. So the need for light rail, what we're trying to accomplish with it is really to address those two trends in a sustainable manner. One, by supporting the growth that's occurring, ensuring that we continue to have good mobility and transportation choices throughout the region, but also to help to achieve those affordability goals by providing transit access to affordable housing, but really all housing, and provide opportunities for lower transportation costs across the board. You can go to the next slide, please. So we have been working on developing the light rail program for several years now. And you may be familiar, in June of 2023, we identified the light rail implementation plan. Lindsay, if you want to talk a little bit more.
Sure.
Please. One.
So we, as Jen mentioned, have prior planning led to the adoption of the phase 1 alignment this past June. That includes an on-street sort of branched line that begins to the north at 38th and Guadalupe and travels down southward along Guadalupe, turning when we reach downtown at 3rd Street, and then connecting to Trinity, where we then cross over Lady Bird Lake on a new bridge, and then split into those two branch lines, going to the south along South Congress to Old Torf, and to the east along East Riverside Drive to Yellow Jacket near State Highway 71. We have also identified priority extensions for the future phases to include extending to the north up to Crestview and to the east connecting to the airport. And this phase 1, as highlighted in some of the pictures here, really serving key destinations and connecting people to opportunities for education by serving UT, ACC Riverside, some middle schools, Texas School for the Deaf, multiple schools along the alignment, healthcare, job centers in various locations along the alignment, key entertainment destinations, as well as housing, particularly opportunities for affordable housing along the corridor. Next slide. And going back to that point last June of adopting the implementation plan and the first phase of the project that will be moved forward, we have since been advancing the work on that first phase and working through multiple efforts, kind of different work streams that all work together and in parallel. Some of those efforts are highlighted here. 3 of those key processes include design, which is that top line there, where we initially develop what we call a base design that becomes the definition of the project footprints and its requirements, and continue to refine that and advance the design over time. The second work stream there, which is referred to as NEPA and stands for the National Environmental Policy Act, is the environmental analysis of the project to help us define the project in a way that is sensitive to our environmental resources and in our community as a whole. And the third line there, the CIG stands for Capital Investment Grants. That is the federal funding process as we are pursuing federal funds for this project. Jen, I think you're going to talk a little bit more detail about, in particular, this next year ahead, those various processes I mentioned above to complete the environmental and early aspects of the federal funding process are generally focused on these next 2 years. And then I think you're going to dive a little bit deeper on this next year ahead.
I think our next couple of slides, if you go to the next one, please. So we do want to talk about what's coming up in the next year, but we actually just completed a series of public meetings really focused on the user experience and what that means, and gathering information to fold into design. I know Peter is on Teams. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I can't be there with you in person, but I have the COVID. I think that it's sort of a fundamental premise as for our process and how we approach the program is to really concentrate on making sure that the system is working for the people that use it. And that we really set a high bar for the urban design elements of the program so that it is integrated into the fabric of our community, both physically and spiritually. So we've spent a lot of time doing research on user experience and user needs. We had some community engagement about that, as Stan mentioned, but this is really the kind of the bedrock of our design process for all the public facing aspects of the system. Go to the next. And so, I think just this is a big, broad overview, but the idea being that, we have a very rigorous, systematic process by which we get to design, where we start with research and we start with observation about how people move in the city. What are the things that create friction in their journeys and their transit experience, and how do we reduce that friction? And from that, we've developed a set of priority user needs, which is what we kind of went out to the public with this fall. And from that, we are developing a set of design principles that then will be the basis of the actual design. So really trying to take this step by step and ground this in that research-based approach. So more to come on that as we move forward.
Okay, I think this one is our last slide. So with the project being essentially defined last June, some of the work we've been doing since then includes the engineering and design work to continue to advance the process. We're getting into our federal process. And that's important because we are anticipating about half of the capital costs for building light rail will be provided through a federal grant through a program called New Starts that's administered by the Federal Transit Administration. So that is a multi-year process that we go through towards those funds. It's obviously a substantial amount of public money. So a couple things that we're starting or really continuing along with the NEPA process. So NEPA is the review that Lindsay was speaking to a minute ago. That's required because we would be using federal money on the project. It will probably take at least 18 months to get through that process. It involves a very comprehensive environmental review of the project, documentation of all that analysis, and then ultimately publishing a draft EIS later in the year that would be available for public review. So to kick that off, in January, the FTA actually publishes a notice of intent to prepare an EIS. It's a bit of a point of process. It's published in the Federal Register, but it's going to lead into a series of public meetings that we'll be hosting in February. And the purpose of those meetings is really to talk about what we're doing, what the process is, how people can plug into it, and also share information out on the project that we're evaluating, what are the different components of it. In general, the project is the same alignment as was identified last June, but we have identified some design options that we'll be sharing out with people and receiving input on that came out of previous community engagement and also some of the technical work. And finally, I'll just kind of comment on the grant process. To go through New Starts, there's several gates and a number of activities that we need to do over the next few years. So we'll be engaging with FTA as we get into the new year here for that first gate, which is called Entry into Project Development. So, there'll be more to come from us, but those are some of the key topics coming up. I think that concludes the slides we have. If there's time for questions, of course, be happy to answer.
Does anybody have any? Mr. Gortz, go ahead. Go ahead and continue, Mr. Gortz.
Mr. Garza, puede seguir.
About potentially extending up north to Crestview or going east to the airport. Now, that is not part of this phase, right? It would be potentially a future extension after phase 1 is complete.
That is correct.
Okay, yeah, I remember back when this was being discussed last spring, from what I remember, the plan was to go up to 38th, and at the same time, I think you all were saying that if there was money left over, it might be possible to go up to 45th Street as part of phase 1. Is that now, I'm just wondering, since you didn't mention that, is that something that's no longer in scope?
So we're advancing the first phase of the project, and part of advancing that work includes continued design and kind of refinement of the cost estimates. So we will continue to evaluate and make sure that we are defining a project that is financially viable. But right now, the funded phase 1 project is from 38th Street to Old Wharf to Yellow Jacket. And that is the project that is being considered for the upcoming environmental analysis as well as the design.
Right, okay.
So until additional funding or availability of funds is identified, we will be advancing that phase 1 project. Accelerating any future extension pieces would require the identification of additional funding availability to bring them into phase 1.
All right, thanks.
Do we have other, Mr. Brooks, go ahead.
There it goes. Does that mean you're not including these extensions in the initial legal process?
Yes. So the NEPA document that we're preparing is really looking at the funded part of the project, which is phase 1. So, if the opportunity comes along to accelerate either the priority extensions, we would look at pivoting and what that means at that time. But we're proceeding with the phase 1 project in the EIS.
Mr. Brooks, can you please turn your microphone?
So even if funding did become available for additional extensions, there still would have to be additional time spent going through the NEPA process again for those extensions.
So it really depends. In order to be part of the project that receives federal funding, there does need to be NEPA clearance that occurs. And that can actually occur in some different ways. So it really depends kind of if and when that happens, how that would be achieved.
Oh, this one. But it doesn't necessarily mean starting at square one. So if and how that funding opportunity is identified, when that happens in the process will allow us to assess how we can pivot the current environmental analysis, supplement it. It doesn't necessarily mean going back to the beginning and starting all over. It really depends on the timing of when that occurs.
Okay, thank you all. We'll go to our next theme, which was actually our CAP Metro team. We'll ask the same, introduce any and all of your colleagues.
I'm Sharmila Mukherjee. I'm EVP, Chief Planning and Development Officer at CAP Metro. And I just staying consistent with the theme of the presentation. Some of you are been part of the CSC, then you have some new members. Today's presentation is definitely high level to kind of give you an introduction of Project Connect program of projects, specifically focusing on CAP Metro portion that I would be sort of giving you a high level update on. I'm joined by.
I'm Andy Skabowski. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and Executive Vice President of CAP Metro.
And I'm Dave Kubicek, Executive Vice President of Capital Construction, Engineering, and Design.
So today's.
Sharma, could you also introduce other colleagues as well? Melissa, do you want to?
Oh, that's true.
That's true. Anyone else that you want to introduce? Sorry, go ahead.
Too fancy and my first time playing with it, so bear with me. We're also joined by, and we wouldn't be here if she didn't get us all together. It's Melissa Ortiz. She is Director of Community Engagement at CAP Metro. And we have other presentations coming up, but I'll focus on this piece. All right. How do I?
Give us a second. We're just going to pull up the presentation. And I should have mentioned this earlier for Mr. Reed and others who are online. I'm keeping an eye, so if you raise your hand or turn on your camera, I can definitely recognize you as well. So we're toggling back and forth between in-person and virtual. So if you just raise your hand on the Zoom, I should be able to recognize you as well if you want to add something. Or you can just unmute yourself and speak as well, and that should get my attention.
Okay, we'll pick this back up again, and Happy New Year. It's really good to come so early in the new year and being able to give a quick update on the Project Connect, a program of projects and the CAP Metro elements in that. So one of the first one that is coming up, and again, it's not 2014, that's when we didn't actually have a past referendum. So it's 10 years from that, it's a typo. January 2024, just in a few days, we would have a new Dub Springs pickup. It's the on-demand neighborhood rideshare. I mean, many of you are very familiar with our microtransit demand response option, pickup option. It's sort of our response to popular rideshare. Picks up within 15 minutes, and it's app-based, allows for flexibility, and it also allows for a level of reliability within the zone. This would be our fourth Project Connect pickup investment, and it was part of the referendum in 2020, in November of 2020. The zones that have already been implemented and been operational at the moment are Daysall, South Menchaca, and North Oak Hill. And on your right, you see the boundaries of the zone where pickup would be able to be introduced. And to mention that in our operational framework, pickup really fills the gap for where fixed route is not a viable option at the moment. So it really almost a starter, more responsive option where density is not quite there yet for fixed route. So moving on to the next slide, wanted to talk about a project that you must all, I'm assuming you're all familiar with, and I would just introduce it and pass it on to Dave Kubicek, our EVP for construction and engineering and design, to be able to kind of go over a little bit more on where we are.
Yes. Good evening. Yeah, as you can see, these pictures here are just a couple of weeks old. So there's actually been a lot more progress and stuff that's been made. Here probably in about 10 hours, we're getting ready to have a major shutdown of the railroad, our last outage. It'll be occurring Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. We will be completing all of the track infrastructure work, all of the signalization to bring it up to par with the rest of the railroad. You know, this affords the operation and service actually to the station, a larger double track segment, and also to include larger platforms and stuff for boarding and deboarding, you know, during events. The other thing around the investment, just around the overall mobility elements, you know, from breaker side, we're going to have the ability to cross to and from directly to the station with all the housing development, apartments, business and stuff that are going to be taking place there, as well as there's a much more improved, what I would say, north-south running parallel to the track work for pedestrians and bikes and everything else throughout. We're on schedule to basically on our part, we'll complete like substantial completion February the 15th in support, you know, of soccer activities or other station, you know, activities. And with one caveat is that we will be finishing up a little bit more construction work on the breakers side. There's a large art improvement or art addition that's going to be put on there. Another thing that's taken place is that there's a substantial investment here taking place addressing a lot of prior water quality concern issues, be it runoff or supply from that perspective as well. So we're going to need to be finishing that up. And so from an operational perspective, Andy and his team will, from a rail perspective, they will have full functionality for opening day and anything else that's followed up after that. We view on our part with our contractors and everything else, we will be officially offsite with everything completed, you know, in April. And like I said, one of the things that we also made a comment is that the artwork was probably going to be another special event itself. It's quite large. And selfishly, one of the things that I did make a comment on is since there's a lot of investment in community activity, I did not want to have that installed just at the same time as we were completing some other work. You know, stuff happens, and there's been a lot of effort and stuff around that. So I'm open to answer any questions around the specific project.
Thanks, Steve. And that will bring me to the next slide. And then it's not on our agenda, but I wanted to give a few minutes to Andy Skowalski, our CEO, to talk a little bit about how we are preparing for our service changes and underlying bus network. Many of you are transit users. It's what's happening to us now and how we are addressing it, I think would be of interest to you. So staying with our rail station development projects, Broadmoor station development, it is behind schedule. And it is very much, the delay is very much a function of where we found ourselves during COVID, inflation, and what we are seeing nationally and also locally, that our mixed use, large 2 million square feet mixed use office development, it's really tied to sort of having the market interest come back up to the level when the project was planned. It's still very much being addressed in discussions, and it's moving forward. Trail connection is at 60% design by City of Austin, and we have received Project Connect team's help in sort of with permitting process as well. One thing I wanted to mention is that as we are waiting on construction, our permitting is nearly complete, and that was another big schedule driver in the mix. There's not a whole lot to talk about Green Line, but also wanted to bring to your attention that Green Line is very important to our network, our region. It is not in the initial a sequence of Project Connect sequence, so you understand that it's not currently funded, but we are understanding the project components internally, planning for it, and evaluating funding and phasing opportunities as we move forward. It is important to mention that we've done a previous TOD study that kind of looked at some of the different elements, but many of those, including ridership projections, would require another look. We are very ready for our service change discussion, and I'm going to give to Andy to talk a little bit about what we are doing to meet things on the ground.
Is there another slide there? No. That's
Oh, yes, of course. At Metro Rapid Expo Center in Pleasant Valley. Andy's update would be very relevant to operationalizing Expo in Pleasant Valley as well, so it's not out of context. But two of the small starts funded projects funded under Project Connect initial program sequence are Expo Line, Expo Center Line, and Pleasant Valley Line. They're both under construction in different phases, and you see the update on the slide. And Dave, if you have anything to add to where shelters are being installed right at the moment, and any updates you want to share with us.
Yeah, just from a high level perspective, we've really got the project broken down into basically 4 main segments. Naturally, Expo Center alignment and all the stations related to it proper. Pleasant Valley and its basic stations aligned as well. We're calling end of line, like Goodnight Ranch or Expo Center, where we're doing end of line charging. There will also be parking opportunities, and also be where we'll be phasing our bus fleet for recharging opportunities at end of line. The fourth element of this is also very important for us is at our maintenance facility at 2910 East 5th Street. That's our primary maintenance facility. That's where it needs all the electrification on the line of that as well. Our construction efforts, we've probably got about 20, what I'd say over close to 25 stations, what we call the flat work, where all the concrete has been poured, the treatments to bike trails, any enhancements working with the city and everything else. As you can see now, we're entering the phase of starting to install bus shelters. And we have talked with the FTA about this project, and they're going to, what we plan on doing is once we get the shelters equipped with all of the signage and electrification and everything else, we're actually going to start putting these into revenue service. So there'll be a sequence of events for that way our customers can use these assets sooner than later. And a lot of them, do incorporate with the existing service. And so there'll be be a phased approach that we're working very closely with Sharmella and Andy with this. And so we view that this is also a good move on our part to be able to start putting these investments in service much sooner than later as we work on completing the work through the project in 24 and 25. So I'll turn it back.
Thank you. And as Jen mentioned earlier, that the underlying bus network, it really holds and supports the light rail. So I really think that what the work we do now is really going to help with the ridership as well as what's to come.
Okay, a little bit about some of the work that both Sharmella and my team will work going forward on with the underlying bus network. Understand, so it's a long-term planning exercise in which we take a look at our existing network. And what we want to do is as light rail comes up, we want to have the ability to use that as a backbone. And I've said it before, I think in other meetings, to extend our bus network and really take the hours of service that we use right now to serve our community and actually push that out further to allow us to serve different areas, as well as maybe increase frequency depending upon what we see for ridership, and really lean in and say, okay, we take the investment in light rail and then we actually turn it into actually expanding the overall size of the transit network as best we can. That work is starting soon. It's more of a vision of what we want, what are the different options we possibly can have, and we're stepping through that, and that'll occur probably over the next year or so.
Would you like to take a minute to talk about your hiring events?
Oh, and the second thing, that on a shorter version, to do any of this from PV Expo to expanding our network, we can't do it without bus operators and we can't do it without mechanics. As with most agencies in the United States in the industry, it's tough to get bus operators. It's really tough to get mechanics. We're doing things like hiring events where we have a 3-day event next week in which you can come on Wednesday and start work on Monday. It's all about capturing somebody if they're interested in making them an employee as fast as you can. We're working with ATU local as well as ATU international on apprenticeship programs on the maintenance side. We're to the point now where we actually have to grow our own mechanics. It doesn't seem like people want to be mechanics anymore. It's just weird. We have an aging mechanic population. As they leave to retire and move on to the next phase of their life, we're having trouble backfilling them. And so we're getting to the point now where we actually, I think the apprenticeship programs are going to be a great source in which we actually tap into high schools and trade schools in the 18, 19-year age range, and actually bring them on and have them grow and have a career at our facility. So that's kind of the next thing we're looking at doing right behind that.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Amalgamated Transit.
Thank you. I think
that's our main labor union that's our labor union for our employees, our representative employees.
we would be just about time. And again, thanks for your interest in the CAC.
I appreciate that. Do folks have any urgent questions or things, clarifications? No, thank you so much. Oh, yeah, appreciate y'all very much. Next, we have our EDOT team, which is actually an interagency team. So it's great y'all can introduce yourselves, and please introduce your colleagues as well, because I know a lot of folks are here.
Yes. Okay. Well, we can start with introduction. So good evening, Chair and members. My name is Anna Lynn. I'm the Transit Oriented Development Manager at CAC Metro. Yes.
And my name is Werner Cook. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the principal planner for the City of Austin's Planning Department and as counterpart leading equitable TOD on the city side. And then we have, so we already saw all the CAP Metro folks in the room. So I'll go ahead and introduce the ETOD folks that are in the room. So we have the development officer, Erica Leek, who's also with the planning department. And then folks on my team, we have Carla Burrell, who's our newest ETOD planner. And we have Lucy Hall, who's also a senior ETOD planner. Cool. I think that's everyone here. I think you're just gonna have to go without your notes.
No problem.
If your computer dies.
No problem. It's telling me 3 minutes. It's gonna, we're just free. Okay. The project we've been working on is called the Equitable Transit Oriented Development Project. And this is something that both agencies have started working on since 2021. And it really is a multi-agency collaboration effort to align transit and housing strategies in a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity ahead of major infrastructure development. And this is something that we can do unlike a lot of other cities with aging infrastructure that they have to go back and retrofit. But for CAP Metro, it's also an opportunity for us to leverage our publicly owned land to develop the equitable TOD so that those who have the greatest need for transit enhancements are also the ones who are able to benefit from the new lively community. So this project is originally funded by the Federal Transit Administration through a special TOD grant. We won a total of over $3 million over 4 different grant applications, and the only agency to do that. And it kind of covered different segments of the initial light rail. But we've been working with the city, especially since 2021, when the city passed a resolution directing staff to produce a ETOD policy plan. So we've been working together ever since, looking at system-wide application. Next slide. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here. Everybody knows a little bit about transit-oriented development, but basically it's a pattern of development centered around high-capacity transit station with mixed-use, high-density residential neighborhoods. Some of the things about TODs, it's really great in bringing transit and different uses to the neighborhood, but sometimes it's a victim of its own success. Sometimes when market dictates who can afford to live here, you push out the existing residents and the smaller businesses. Oh,
for the interpreter.
Oh, okay. I'm going at the pace of having no more battery. Okay, there we go. All right. Next slide, please. For the purpose of this project, we really intentionally shifted from traditional transit-oriented development to equitable TOD because we understand that it's not just enough to mitigate some of the displacement impacts from these new communities, but we actually have to think about ways to proactively add benefits and opportunities back to these neighborhoods. And that is especially to the historically marginalized communities of color. So also including access users, the elderly, youth population. So anyone who can really benefit from transit connectivity. Next slide, please. Community engagement has been a very heavy focus on this project since we started. And we've been working with the community in a variety of different ways to understand preferences and challenges of existing transit system in our communities. And these include public meetings and workshops, which is great to capture some of the users, but we have to really dive deeper. We go out with targeted focus groups, compensated discussions. We have community connectors who help us reach deeper into the community. We work with AVES and the CAC on a monthly basis through a special working group. So throughout the project, we've done 5 major phases of engagement with a neat summary to kind of show how much we've tried to reach out to different levels of the community. We really want to capture our riders and users, not just those who have the time to show up to these public meetings. Next slide, please. Quick overview. So
the roadmap for ETOD, it is a process. It takes a lot of time to get these projects up and running. We have to walk before we run, but we want to be running a little faster if possible. So I'll turn it over to Warner to kind of go over our game plan.
Yeah, so since 2021, a lot of our work has been focused in the policy realm so far, kind of getting the general overview, the framework, continuing to iterate on that with the community to make sure that these are the goals that we're trying to achieve. This is what we mean when we say ETOD. These are the tools we want to use to get there. And all of that was kind of pulled together into on this slide, it's a step one, which was establishing the framework. And in this case, it's the equitable transit-oriented development policy plan. I'm not going to be able to tell you everything that's in that document tonight in our short thing, but if you're going to join the working group and you haven't interacted with that policy plan yet, happy to sit down and have our team help walk you through that. Yes, I believe the website, I have it bookmarked right here, is publicinput.com/ETOD.
There's a link at the end of the presentation. You'll be able to access all the documents.
Yeah, so that's kind of what the last 2-ish years have been focused on as a joint partnership between CAC Metro and the City of Austin. And then recently, starting in the spring and then wrapping up over the fall, we did some engagement around 2 of the transit centers that are currently functioning as transit centers. And Anna will talk a little bit more about that. But that was kind of zooming in on specific neighborhoods around publicly owned land, around existing transit centers to see how could we make ETOD supportive vision plans for those areas. And then really we are at an inflection point, and you will see in the next few months kind of the shift. I mean, it's happening in about a month, the shift to regulatory kind of work and more hands-on implementation work, where you'll start to see us go from the policy level down to either in CAC Metro's case, starting to figure out how to implement it on their own land through pilot work, or in the city's case, looking at various land development code amendments and new stationary vision plan processes, updating existing plans along the corridors. And then as well, both of us are very frequently working in coordination with ATPs, environmental planners, and engineers to kind of infuse that within the various processes that they're the lead on. Next slide, please. So just the quick overview of the policy plan. I guess this is kind of, we can go to the next slide because I already explained that we did a framework. What's in the plan? In addition to the goals that are laid out in the plan, there's also, you'll hear the word typologies. That kind of is categories of the different stations throughout the Project Connect program. There's a planning prioritization, kind of like when do we need to get to a station area plan, high, medium, low priority. The policy toolkit, this is like the big chunk of the plan that talks about, what are the different housing affordability tools? What are the different small business and economic development tools? What are the different real estate strategies we're going to use? What are the different mobility steps that we need to take to get to our ETOD goals? And then there's a work plan and next steps. And as I said, those are kind of continuously being refined, and you'll see on the city side some action on next steps coming forward in the short term. And in the interest of time, we'll just keep going. But the focus is on all incomes, all backgrounds, and especially those that we have not supported as well before. And then I'll hand it over to Anna to talk about kind of this transition into vision planning in a small area in North Lamar and South Congress.
And so as Warner said, step one, we really focused on system-wide regulatory framework. Step two, where we are, is we're taking all the recommendations that we made in step one, and now we're going to zoom in on a neighborhood level centered around 2 transit centers owned by CAC Metro. And the 2 transit centers are North Lamar Transit Center in the north and South Congress in the south. So the purpose of doing the station area vision plan is, this is not a regulatory plan, but it's a hybrid vision and area plan to kind of get the neighborhood ready for future changes necessary for TOD development. And this one is not, it's incentive-based, where we establish goals for land use, housing, connectivity, some of these overall broader neighborhood goals. And you can go to the next slide. So with the 2 stations, as you can see, these are 2 very active transit centers that are fully in operation today. We have an opportunity to kind of develop on site where we're still keeping the transit component, but we have in mind in the future, this is an extension of the light rail in the future, how to integrate the mixed use community and our existing transit center with future multimodal connectivity. So the station area vision plan, this is a very high level document with 5 basic sections where we set up the vision for each of the neighborhoods. And then we look at the existing conditions and the broader neighborhood connectivity. Then we go to zoom in on the CAC Metro site, and then we do like a vision concept of what this neighborhood or this transit center could be in the future based on realistic market projections and also feedback from the community of what amenities they would like to see. So if we can go to the next slide. This is just an example of a couple of the pages. We have our first draft done now with the expectation to refine and add to it before it's ready for council adoption. But within the area plan, we also indicate character districts that are appropriate to the development of these around the transit center. And even though that this is years off from the actual light rail connection, we have a real opportunity from CAC Metro side to develop it first as a bus TOD that we could indeed get the amenities and uses to the community in preparation for that future connectivity.
And if you're interested in this, I'll just give a plug that we had a much more detailed discussion about the North Lamar and South Congress Transit Center vision plans at the December CAC meeting, which is recorded and online on the CAC website. So feel free to go back and dig in more. But we can go to the next slide and we're almost wrapping up. So kind of thinking about some of those concurrent next steps. Next slide. We are going to be kind of transitioning from CAC Metro, who is leading the North Lamar and South Congress vision planning process. Their consultant team has wrapped up and kind of created drafts that have been transmitted over to us. Now we're in the internal city kind of department review phase. We're also excited to have new and returning CAC members kind of in the working group to help us. We know that there's a few things that still need to be added to those before they really capture what we heard fully from the community and what we've heard from the CAC. So we'll be working on tweaking those drafts and bringing them out later this year, probably, you know, after the summer break, so that we can do a final round of engagement with community members on those final drafts and then take them forward for council adoption. And then in the meantime, CAC Metro in the background is doing a lot of feasibility work, trying to understand what does the market look like, what do their options look like for their actual publicly owned sites. So they'll be working on that for the next year and a half roughly. Next slide. And then on my team, on the regulatory update stuff, we've launched a contract with our consultant Nelson Nygaard to develop an overlay for this full ETOD system of about roughly 100 stations. And so we'll have public engagement with that. They're helping us with researching other markets and doing market analysis here in Austin. And we're planning that that contract will wrap up later this year, and then we will be coming to council in the first half of 2025. But we've heard a lot, you know, oh, we have to wait for regulatory changes to see ETOD until 2025, and that's not the case. We've also been working really diligently with our partners to kind of come up with a suite of early out regulatory changes that we think are kind of the most, they're simple, they're feasible, they're understandable, but they'll make a big impact towards our grant competitiveness. And so you'll be hearing more about those in the coming weeks as kind of we take forward a council action to initiate some of those. In the background, we do all kinds of other things like tracking performance and success, coordinating with all of the different departments and agencies on the policy tools, and, you know, being an advisor on redevelopment projects and things like that. So that's ongoing work.
And really want to stress how much we enjoy working with the CAC ETOD working group. And I know a few of the members have left, but we really hope to continue working with you guys, especially this new year as you form your new group. We meet monthly, and we really look forward to your continuous input into this project. It's a marathon.
Yeah, thank you all.
Guess I'll open it up to any sort of urgent questions or anything that folks want to share. And I know we had a question from our community members on how to connect with the community advisory committee members. So there is a page on the website for the community advisory committee. This is projectconnect.com/get-involved. And then you can go to the community advisory committee, and it has not been updated yet because we sort of, this is our first meeting, but soon you'll be able to see all of the names and emails for the members there. But certainly for those who are returning, you can see our email addresses there.
Easy way to get to is projectconnect.com/CAC. So you won't have to type out that whole thing. So projectconnect.com/CAC will have all that information.
Thank you, guys. Any questions for our EDOT team? Okay, great. We'll move on. Thank you all so much. And I know, folks, this is like drinking from a fire hose right now. We're going through a lot of stuff, but it just shows honestly the amazing work that our staff teams have been doing across the board. So we'll jump right into our anti-displacement prevention update from our anti-displacement team. And I believe, Ms. Jacqueline, you're joining us virtually and you're going to be leading us through that.
Yes, I am. Good evening, everybody. My name is Nefertiti Jackman. I serve as the Community Displacement Prevention Officer for the City of Austin in the Housing Department. And I am joined by my colleague, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Good evening. I'm Jamie May. I'm the Housing and Community Development Officer with the Housing Department over the real estate portfolio.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie. And so I'll get us started. I'll share my screen.
Starting to stop you. Could you also introduce Mr. Miguel Lopez as well, since he's here?
And I said I was going to do that and I forgot. So thank you very much. Miguel, would you like to introduce yourself and your role?
Yes, hi, Miguel Lopez. Sorry, camera's a little off. Miguel Lopez, I'm the program specialist. I work as a liaison for the City of Austin to the CAC. And it's been a pleasure working with everyone. Excited for a new year.
Okay, thank you, Miguel. I don't know, do you guys have the presentation or no?
Yes, we can see it up here.
Okay.
You all should be able to see it on Zoom as well.
Okay, all righty. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Like everyone else, this is a very brief presentation. It's a condensed version, and it doesn't really touch on the background information that help to inform the anti-displacement strategies and investments. And what it also doesn't show is why. Why are these dollars needed? Understanding that historically Black and Brown communities have been displaced as a result of transit investments. But I'm happy to come back in the future to answer any other questions you might have and to provide some historical and background context to understand why we are taking the approach that we are. So, okay, there we go. So we'll just go briefly on the background information. And the background information that I'm going to share with you really focuses on the direction that we receive from council and basically where we are to date with fulfilling or following the guidance that we've received from council with the approval of Project Connect in November 2020. So the guidance was to use the $300 million to acquire real property, real estate, and create financing tool and other anti-displacement strategies. We were to create the equity tool, neighborhood level strategies, and then also develop those spending priorities for the $300 million with the CAC, create a publicly facing dashboard to show where the investment dollars have been made and how much money has been spent to date, and then also develop key performance indicators. So we've done 1 through 6. We still have a lot, well, not a lot more to do. In the sense that where we are now, we need to work on developing the key performance indicators, and I'll sort of outline that a little bit. But everything else, we are in the process, or these items 1 through 6 have been accomplished so far. Where we are now, the key performance indicators, Council directed us to work with impacted neighborhoods in the creation of neighborhood level strategies to prevent displacements and to also establish priorities. And to also identify what they call key performance indicators related specifically to equity and displacement. And those are to be tracked and included in the publicly available performance dashboard. And so that's sort of where we are now. And I know a number of groups are working on developing their KPIs. Courtney is sort of leading that work with ATP, and we will be coordinating and collaborating as we continue this work moving forward. We also have a dashboard. This dashboard, it's a map, really, it's a displacement risk map that we are using to help us prioritize where investments are made. This was adopted from the University of Texas Uprooted report and study, and I'm going to slow down. I can't see anyone, but I can tell I'm speaking fast. So I'm going to slow down for the interpreters, and I apologize for that. But this map is helping us, number one, on the right-hand side, you can see the 5 characteristics that make a household vulnerable to displacement, communities of color if you're low income, households with children living in poverty, renters, and households with a person, the head of household 25 or older without a bachelor's degree. We're able to use this information to understand how many housing units are in a community, how many renters are there, so we can design displacement strategies and resources and really target investments so that we can make sure that the strategies that are designed are appropriate. So this is sort of addressing that council guidance and direction at a neighborhood level strategy. The timeline for the investments have been outlined over a 13-year period. Currently, initially, you'll see from years 1 through 3, it was $100 million that was allocated. And then that, we sort of ramped up in the beginning. And then for years 4 through 13, it's an investment amount of $20 million each year. So just to let you know where we are, we have basically determined where those dollars are going, contracted with organizations or developers for the $23 million and the $42 million. So right now we are planning where dollars are being spent for the $35 million for fiscal year 22 and 23, we often lag a year behind. Some people are saying, well, why haven't the dollars been spent? And planning takes time. So we're often a year behind where the allocation dollars are. But, and we'll be planning this year or now for the 24 dollars. And the investment timeline, we worked both with council. We've received direction from council. They gave guidance on the first allocation of $23 million, which was prioritized for land acquisition. But we also worked with Community Catalyst, who helped us to develop the racial equity anti-displacement tool that helped to prioritize key people who should receive funding, key places, and the key purposes of where the $300 million should be spent. We also work with the Project Connect Community Advisory Committee and community members, which have all been key stakeholders guiding us on how the dollars are to be prioritized and spent. We recently worked with the CAC through community engagement efforts to establish budget priorities every 3 years. This allows us more time to adequately plan for how the dollars will be spent going forward. And here, this is just a chart just showing the breakdown of how the spending was allocated for FY 21 and 22. And as you see, there was 23 million, as I shared previously, for land acquisition, 21 million for real estate development, and then 20 million was put aside for what we call community initiated solutions. And one of the things that we prioritize is understanding the value that community members and community-based organizations have solving problems, recognizing that they are closest to the problems and they have solutions to solve the needs within their communities. And so this is something that's very exciting. We currently have 12 organizations that are working and have been allocated. So it's less than a 20 million. We're looking at it's about $16 million with contracts that were actually executed. And I'll share that dashboard so you can, a snapshot of the dashboard shortly. And the budget allocations for the next 3 years, you can see here. So the bulk of the funding, which is important, is going to land acquisition, approximately 50%, 57% of the total allocation over the next 3 years. 14 million will be for affordable housing development, and then another 14 million for what I put as immediate interventions. This could be a continuance of the community initiated solutions, but we didn't want to designate that. We really want to see the performance. We're taking time to track the performance of the community initiated solutions vendors. And so there might be some other gaps or new program that we might need to roll out. So we left that vague. We didn't just say it's going to be community initiated solutions, although it might be, or some version or modification of those existing programs. And now I'm going to pass it over to Jamie to talk about the real estate portion of the anti-displacement dollars.
Sure. Thank you, Nefertiti. Again, I will be very brief and high level for a lot of this information, but I just want to say that the Project Connect funding that we've been able to access has not only allowed us to make multiple acquisitions through the Austin Housing Finance Corporation, which is a subsidiary of the city of Austin. I just realized I needed to slow down as well. But we've also been able to leverage our general obligation bonds better by targeting our Project Connect funding to preservation activities and to areas that are experiencing displacement. That's allowed us to acquire properties in other parts of town using our general obligation bonds. So I did want to highlight three properties that we have acquired in just the last couple of years. You can see Midtown Flats, SoCo 121, and City View. All three of these were existing affordable housing developments. The first two were what we call naturally occurring affordable housing, or NOAA. And that's because of the age of the property, the location, some of the amenities provided necessitated the property manager to charge a lower rent. We, upon purchase, applied a land use restriction agreement that will hold those rents at an affordable rate, essentially in perpetuity, or at least as long as the Austin Housing Finance Corporation holds the property. And I say in perpetuity because we are not in the business of selling our properties at this point. As you can see, we have, through just these three acquisitions, we have been able to preserve over 150 units of low-income affordable housing. It has cost some funds. The first two you can see were rather large acquisitions. We acquired these properties in partnership with Affordable Central Texas, different organization. Affordable Central Texas has been our partner on several acquisitions in the recent past. And we're very happy to work with them as they target a little higher MFI or median family income, while we target below 50% median family income for our rental properties. That allows the property to be a more mixed income and more sustainable development. I also wanted to highlight City View, as this was acquired from the Housing Authority of Travis County, and it had an available 1.676 acres of developable land as part of the acquisition. So we've been working with our partner SGI Ventures to develop a phase 2 for this property. City View phase 1 is a senior development. City View phase 2 is going to be a permanent supportive housing development with 100 new units. And that's really one of the great advantages of these funds is we've been able to not only preserve properties in perpetuity, but we're available building out a second phase or adding new units on properties so that we can maximize the use of the land. Let's go to the next slide. And the other side of our funding has been through the rental housing and ownership housing development assistance programs. These programs provide gap financing for housing development in exchange for a commitment of at least 40 years for long-term affordability. And those units need to be affordable below 50% of the median family income, although we do try to target down to 30% as well. As you can see by just the affordable units being provided in these properties, it's a little over 900 units that we've been able to finance with our Project Connect funding. That's about $33 to $34 million that we've invested across these 7 properties. One of these properties, the Habitat for Humanity at Loyola Lane, is an ownership property, an ownership product. While the other 3 are all rental properties, affordable below 50%. You'll also note that the Housing Authority of the City of Austin has invested more than $9 million in the Pathways at Rosewood Courts rehabilitation and redesign. And if you've seen the pathways at Chalmers Courts, you know that those properties not only can benefit dramatically from increased density, but also they look amazing now. The Housing Authority has done amazing work with all of their properties, and we're very excited to be a partner with them on Pathways at Rosewood Courts. With that, I'd like to pass it back over to Nefertiti.
You actually have one more if you want to talk about the AdCap program.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see that one. So the AdCap program is a specific set aside of funds. It was originally approximately $8 million. We have made 2 awards and closed on them both with the Austin Revitalization Authority. These are both 4-unit properties. So it's a total of 8 units. Each unit has 2 bedrooms. And the Austin Revitalization Authority has purchased these with the Anti-Displacement Community Acquisition Program funds, and will be managing them as low-income housing for at least 40 years. These are preservation of existing units, and we're very happy to provide those funds for Austin Revitalization Authority, not only because we get to preserve these developments, but we also get to help sponsor and support an existing nonprofit in the community. We also have 2 additional awards that were recommended for funding in November that we are hoping to close. I believe we've closed one of them. We might have closed both, but we will be closing on the 4th, if it's not closed already, very, very shortly. These are 2 separate developments. Looks like we've repeated them a little bit, but there are 2 separate developments. One is 300 Carmen Court, and the other, unfortunately, I don't have the address with me. But we are, again, these are all 4 with the Austin Revitalization Authority. These are what we call missing middle developments, where you have smaller apartment complexes. So it's not the 200, 300 unit apartment complex. It's the smaller quadplex or series of townhomes that really does help provide just the variety of housing typology at a variety of affordability levels throughout the city. And now I'll hand it to Nefertiti.
Thank you, Jamie. And so with the publicly facing dashboard that we created, there is an opportunity to look at where the developments are located. So you can track these. And one of the criteria for the investments using the Project Connect dollars is that they needed to be in an area within a 1 mile radius of a Project Connect, but then also either in an actively a displacement risk category, had to be active, vulnerable, or chronic displacement. So what you will see here is that most of the investments to date, the real estate investments, have been in neighborhoods or areas where the residents are facing active displacement risk. And again, I can come back and share more on all of those. I'm not going to get into the details of the various organizations and their programs, but we focused on three priority areas for the community initiated solutions. We looked at programs that prioritize tenant stabilization. And you can see some of the organizations that were awarded funding, their total dollar amount. The total award amount for the organizations was capped at $2 million. And most of these contracts will be approximately 3 years. There was also home ownership expansion, and a couple of organizations, 3 organizations were awarded funding to help stabilize homeowners. And then the third area was on economic mobility, looking at other ways we could help advance or expand economic mobility opportunities for families in Austin. So you'll see there's a financial literacy course, there's a work training program, workforce development training, and then there's an estate planning program. So we're really excited about the variety of programming that came out of community initiated solutions. And this dashboard has only been up, the organizations just barely started, and already we are seeing that they are having tremendous reach into the community. And so I think that's basically it. I sort of talked about some of the next steps, and which includes us developing our key performance indicators and continuing to collaborate with our partners in both within the city of Austin as well as Austin Transit Partnership and CAC Metro. But then what we're going with me and my team, what we will be doing is really looking at the effectiveness of community initiated solutions to see if the programs are reaching the people who need them. And then continuing to update our displacement risk map so that we can highlight or recognize any changes that are occurring. And one of the things that we seek to do is to be nimble with our programming, using the data from the displacement risk maps. If we need to target investments in other areas, that's one of the things that we plan to do. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Ms. Jackman. In the interest of time, would CC members be okay if we, unless somebody has a really critical question or clarifying question, if we can move on? Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Jackman, and thank you, Mr. May. We'll call in our last mentor speaker, which is our Project Connect office. I believe, Ms. Mode, are you going to be leading on that? As you come up, you can introduce any of your colleagues as well.
Who's the person? Okay, I'm used to the City Hall one. Good evening, Anik Baudet. I'm the mobility officer for Project Connect for Project Connect, and I am the lead for the city's Project Connect office. So before we go to the next slide, I'll be concise with why we exist. So we started as a office of one, which was me shortly after, it was December of 2020, shortly after the referendum passed. Assistant city manager at the time, Gina Fiandaca, decided that there needed to be a single point of contact at the city of Austin in order for us to fulfill our commitment as a good partner to Capital Metro and to Austin Transit Partnership. And one of the catalysts for that was not only reviewing best practice across the country with other cities such as Phoenix who have experience implementing light rail, and learning from them on what they believe they could have done differently from the city municipal side of things in order to move things along, and then what things did they do right. So the luxury of not going first. But also in July 2021, which is a transportation think tank based in DC, they put out a report that's called A Blueprint for Building Better Transit. And one of the biggest takeaways from that report was about municipalities and permitting processes and right-of-way acquisition, real estate acquisition, and different processes that really need to be looked at if transit projects are going to be done more efficiently in North America. And so taking advice from that report, Gina really wanted to create a group of experts at the city who could be on the spot decision makers to support Austin Transit Partnership and Cap Metro as they move through this program. And so we are, next slide, please. We are a group of around about 20 folks who support not only the light rail portion of the program, but also Cap Metro in, right now, we're heavily involved with the Metro Rapid lines, which will come online in 2025, as you all know. So these are the 4 areas where we do a lot of our work. We are the single point of contact for not only Austin Transit Partnership and Cap Metro, but also for city management. We are a city of 15,000 some odd people with 40 some odd departments, and the city manager's office knows that they can come to me and immediately get status and, talk through any issues that that have been brought to their attention about this program, and we solve problems. So I like to say that our job is to make sure that, my job is to make sure that the city doesn't get in its own way with regards to implementing this program. And so our mission is to connect communities by supporting the delivery of the city's high capacity transit system with a focus on collaboration, innovation, technical excellence, and efficiency. And I'll highlight the collaboration. We heard a lot of CACs. Our office, make sure the right people in the right departments. We have about 25 of the 40 departments at the city, give or take. Don't quote me on those numbers, but those are pretty close. Have a stake in this project one way or another. You can imagine that the utilities have a huge stake. Planning department, as you just heard, has a huge stake. The housing department is concerned about the project. The parks department, we're working very closely with them. So, our job is to make sure we are being efficient with the folks in each department and making sure when we use them, they have a lot of other stuff to do. We're a big city. We're the 10th largest city in the nation. Project Connect will become part of the DNA of the city. This project is going to be around for a very long time, but we are here at the beginning. And so what we do also is we have funded positions in the departments so that we can have the responsiveness that we need to move this phase forward, and so on as we move through project development into engineering and into construction. Collectively, pulling from the report as well, when I built the program, we intentionally hired from within, and we have over 150 years of experience in permitting city projects and doing right-of-way acquisition, doing transportation planning. And so we really do have the best of the best in this program to assist our agency partners. What else would I like to say? That's really it. And then the next slide is our just key activities. We're always briefing the city manager on what's happening with Project Connect and needs that we have. We're communicating with council offices, with this committee, with different boards and commissions and committees of the city council. We're doing a lot of coordination with transportation and public works on the traffic operations related to not only light rail, but Metro Rapid, Red Line, other aspects of the program. Right now, we're also very much involved in helping Capital Metro with their site plans for their park and rides and the end of use facilities for the new charging stations that are needed for Metro Rapid. So a lot of permitting assistance and a lot of environmental, like proactive environmental and planning coordination with Watershed Department, trying to look at as we project what's going to be needed during permitting for light rail. How can we do things differently for different results? Our code for development is really focused to private development. That's on one site, one polygon. It's not really focused to long linear projects in the right of way. And so we're looking at, are there any proactive amendments or changes do we need to make now to set us up for success? So what we've created is a Project Connect ordinance, and that is a repository where reviewers at the Development Service Department, whenever site plans start coming in for utility relocation and other types of construction, along with the current code, they can look at the Project Connect ordinance to see if there's any special accommodations that have been made specific to this project. So that's what we do in a nutshell. Feel free, we are housed here in the program office, which is really nice to work very closely with Lindsay and Jen and Greg and his team, and Cap Mitchell comes over a lot as well. So we feel like we're poised for success. Along with the CACs and the structure for this program is in place. And we're just, we're excited about 2024, and I hope you all are too, and happy to take any questions, and also any questions for Nefertiti if she's still on the line.
I appreciate that. Do we have any sort of quick questions or it's time? Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Bode. I really appreciate that. This does wrap up all of our discussion items. I will say, no, again, this was like a lot of information, but it is really exciting to see it all in one place. And I just really want to thank all of our staff for, being present here today and honestly working in the sort of time constraint that we gave and helping us cover a lot of ground. We do regularly have staff updates at this time, but considering we've sort of gotten most of the updates, we're going to skip that and go to our working group and back updates. I think just all I want to say on the working groups is, so at our next meeting, we will be creating officially all of our working groups and appointing people to them. So just so folks know, in the past, we've had 5 working groups, and I do have sort of suggestions on looking at what are sort of the thematic areas where it makes sense for us to have working groups again, and we'll do that. What I'll do is I'll circulate something to y'all earlier, but that does not mean that we cannot have additional working groups as well. So y'all think about that. And working groups are just a place for us to, be able to really do deep dive with staff on various different items. So we're not specifically, like this, we're time constrained. We're able to really dig into a lot of details and have a lot of back and forth conversation. I think just on that one, I do want to say there's 2 conversations that are more timely. So even as we're looking at forming working groups, I would love to see if folks are interested in engaging in those conversations. One is the light rail conversation. Our ADP staff will be working this month and next month through some work. And I want to see our folks who are really interested in the light rail aspect of Project Connect. This is sort of, scoping the design elements, and as we're preparing for the EIS, all of those different things. If you're interested in serving on that working group, again, we're not forming the working group today, but if you're interested in being part of that conversation, please go ahead and indicate that now. And I'll just make sure that I'm taking notes of this so that I can pass that along to staff.
I'm sorry, it's been a long day. Could you repeat the title of the working group?
So this is specifically the light rail aspect of Project Connect, so we're really focusing on that. So think the work with the Austrian Transit Partnership.
I think I need to think about how all the working groups are going to fit together, but I would be interested. I can't remember which working groups I'm on. Maybe I'm on too many.
Well, we'll be starting from scratch, honestly. So we're gonna reestablish all the working groups and appoint people from scratch. So for now, you're on 0. And this would count as 0 as well, but this means that for this month, staff will particularly be engaging with you on this question. That makes sense. So really, we're going to be deciding on what they look like, but likely in my mind, what I have is light rail and project design, anti-displacement planning, governance, equitable transit-oriented development, and potentially public safety. But again, all is up for conversation. So
I'm interested in light rail.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Reed. That's great. Other folks, again, who want to be part of the light rail conversation for this month. Let me frame it that way. Oh, I see, Mr. Crossley, you have your hand up as well. Oh, sorry. Unsure, our staff will likely be scheduling some meetings. So it would be sort of for now, just staff pulling together some meetings. They would be based on y'all's schedule. I don't know. It's fine if you wanted to say something. Okay, so we're hearing from staff unsure yet. Okay. Yeah, Ms. Pine was saying unsure of the time commitment right now to be planned. Perfect. Thank you so much. We really appreciate Mr. Brooks. Okay. And I'll throw myself in there as well. And that actually does max out that conversation. But again, as we establish working groups, we'll do that. The other time sensitive conversation is the public safety conversation. Go ahead, Ms. Meyer.
Okay, yes, I in particular would be very interested in public safety work group.
I appreciate that. I see Ms. Plateau as well. And I do want to say, Mr. Conley isn't here, but he couldn't be here because he's traveling, but he sent me a notification earlier. He's interested in that as well. And hopefully we can really get some updates on that work quickly. I know there's a lot of work happening at the end of the year, so hopefully we can see some follow-up from that as well. Thank you, Mr. Ortiz, as well. Okay, those were the two sort of time-sensitive ones, but again, we'll form all the working groups next time. I'll send out an email putting out just options, but again, these are options presented by me. Does not mean we cannot change them, shape them, tweak them, however y'all would like us to do that. This takes us to our future agenda items, future meetings and agenda items. Are folks wanting any particular future agenda items at this time? I'll honestly happily accept that because we have a very busy schedule for early spring. There's a lot of things coming down the pipeline. We'll keep you all updated. So without much, oh, go ahead, Ms. Plateau.
So we do the THC groups, we need to reform those also.
That is correct. So the technical advisory committees, we should be able to formulate them as well. However, the technical advisory committees are being reformulated as ATP is reconsidering its own governance. So we might wait until then and then do exactly what you're saying. But yep, it's on our radar as well. Any other thing that folks want to say before we adjourn here?
Chair, just one more thing. I had discussed with everyone, I had reached out to everyone that would need a City of Austin email address, and we've already started the process with the city clerk, and y'all will be reached out within the next coming weeks, probably a little bit sooner, but just wanted to let everybody know that is moving along. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. I really appreciate that. So that's a good reminder. We'll all have our emails, and also there will be an ethics training and staff will be reaching out regarding that as well. So we'll be going through a training. Okay, well, without much further ado, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting of the Project Connect Community Advisory Committee meeting at 7:04 p.m. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.